My name is Sarah Patterson. I am 34 years old and I live in the city. I never thought a single sentence could destroy my entire understanding of my family. I was standing in the grocery store holding a basket of apples when I ran into my Uncle Jacob. He has always been the kindest one in our family, but that day he looked nervous. He looked at me with deep pity in his eyes. I smiled at him and said, "I can't wait for Oscar's wedding next month. I finally found the perfect dress." Uncle Jacob didn't smile back. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder. His voice was very quiet, like he was afraid to break the news. "Sarah," he said, "the wedding was last week." The world stopped. I felt cold all over. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone right there in the aisle. I opened social media and there it was, hundreds of photos. My mother in her blue silk dress, my father raising a glass of champagne, my brother Oscar kissing his bride. Everyone I loved was there laughing and celebrating, everyone except me. They didn't just forget to invite me, they hid it from me. They erased me. And the worst part, a month later when they thought I still didn't know, they had the nerve to ask for the keys to my lake house. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Sarah Patterson. I am 34 years old. I drove to my parents' house. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember stopping at red lights or using my turn signal. My body was on autopilot. My mind was stuck on that picture on my phone. My brother Oscar in a tuxedo, my mother in blue silk, my father holding a glass of champagne. They looked so happy. They looked complete and I wasn't there. I pulled into the driveway. My parents' house looked the same as always. The grass was cut. The porch light was on. It looked like a home. But as I stared at the front door, I felt sick to my stomach. I felt like a stranger. I turned off the car engine. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I took a deep breath. I told myself to stay calm. I needed to hear them say it. I needed to hear why. I walked up the steps and unlocked the door. I still had a key. I wondered for the first time if they resented that I had a key. Inside the house smelled like roast chicken. It was a Tuesday night, family dinner night. Usually I was invited. Tonight my phone had been silent. I walked into the kitchen. They were all there. My mom, my dad, and Oscar. They were sitting at the round wooden table eating. Oscar was laughing at something my dad said. When I walked in, the laughter stopped. It wasn't a slow stop. It was instant. The room went dead silent. Forks froze halfway to mouths. My mother looked up and her eyes went wide. She didn't look happy to see me. She looked annoyed. She looked like I had interrupted a private meeting. "Sarah," my mom said. Her voice was flat. "We didn't know you were coming over." She didn't ask how I was. She didn't offer me a plate. She just stated a fact. I stood by the refrigerator. I felt cold. I looked at Oscar. He looked away, focusing on his mashed potatoes. He couldn't even look me in the eye. "I saw the photos," I said. My voice was quiet but it didn't shake. "I saw the photos of the wedding." The silence stretched out. It felt heavy. I waited for an apology. I waited for someone to jump up and say, "Oh my God, Sarah. It was a mistake. The invitation got lost." I waited for them to cry. I waited for them to hug me. None of that happened. My father put his fork down. He took a sip of his wine. He looked at me with a tired expression like I was a child throwing a tantrum over a broken toy. "It was a small ceremony, Sarah," he said. "Very small. There were 100 people in the photos." I said. "I saw cousins from Ohio. I saw neighbors. I saw Oscar's college roommate. It happened very fast." My mother added. She wiped her mouth with a napkin. "We didn't want to overwhelm you. You've been so busy with work. We know how stressed you get." "Stressed?" I repeated. "It was my brother's wedding. I bought a dress. I asked you about the date 3 times last month. You told me it hadn't been set yet." Oscar finally looked up. He looked defensive. "Look, Sarah, don't make a scene. This is exactly why we did it this way. I felt like I had been slapped. What do you mean? You bring a certain energy, Oscar said. He waved his hand in the air, gesturing at me. You're always so intense. You always make things about you. We just wanted a peaceful day. We wanted it to be easy. I stared at him. I thought about the last 10 years. I thought about the time I drove Oscar to the emergency room at 3 a.m. when he broke his leg because Mom and Dad were too tired to drive. I thought about the time I paid for Mom's dental surgery because Dad didn't have the cash right now. I thought about every birthday, every holiday, every crisis where I was the one fixing things, paying for things, soothing things. I make things about me? I asked. I have spent my entire adult life taking care of this family. See, my mother said, pointing a finger at me. This is what we mean. You're doing it right now. You're raising your voice. You're making us feel guilty. It's exhausting, Sarah. We just wanted one day, Dad said, cutting another piece of chicken. Just one day where we didn't have to worry about your mood. And it was lovely. It was very peaceful. They went back to eating. Just like that, they dismissed me. I stood there watching them chew. I realized something terrifying. They weren't sorry. They didn't feel guilty. They truly believed they were the victims of my intensity. They viewed my presence as a burden. I looked around the kitchen. I had painted these walls for them 2 years ago. I had bought that refrigerator when the old one died. I had paid for the tiles under their feet. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a utility. I was an appliance. I was useful when they needed something fixed or paid for, but when it came time to celebrate, when it came time for joy, I was in the way. So, I'm optional, I said. My mother sighed. Don't be dramatic, Sarah. Grab a plate if you're staying, but please don't ruin dinner. I didn't grab a plate. I didn't scream. I just stood there, letting the truth sink into my bones. The pain was replaced by a strange numb clarity. I saw them for the first time, not as the parents I wanted them to be, but as the people they actually were. They were selfish. They were cruel, and they didn't love me, not in the way that matters. I'm not staying, I said. Fine, Oscar said. Close the door on your way out. I turned around. I walked to the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it quietly. I walked back to my car. The night air was cool. I looked up at the sky. It was the same sky as before, but the world underneath it had changed forever. I sat in my car for a long time before I started the engine. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt hollowed out. I felt like a ghost. I had just watched my family bury me while I was still alive. I didn't go home immediately. I drove around for an hour. I needed to be moving. If I stopped, I was afraid I would collapse. But eventually, I had to go back. I had to sleep. I had to go to work the next day. Life doesn't stop just because your heart breaks. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Oscar. I stared at the screen. I almost didn't answer. But a small foolish part of me thought, maybe he's calling to apologize. Maybe he realizes how bad this is. I picked up. Hello. Hey, Sarah, Oscar said. His voice was cheerful, completely normal, as if the conversation in the kitchen had never happened, as if he hadn't erased me from his wedding. How are you? I'm here, I said. What do you want, Oscar? Whoa, chill out, he laughed. I'm just calling to check in. And actually, I have a favor to ask, a pretty big one. I gripped the phone. A favor? Yeah, so you know Sarah and I didn't really get a honeymoon, he said. Sarah was his new wife. The wedding costs were crazy. We're a bit tapped out. He paused, waiting for me to offer money. That was the usual pattern. Oscar had a problem, Sarah wrote a check. I stayed silent. Anyway, he continued, filling the silence. We were thinking we really need a break, just the two of us. And we thought, why not use the lake house? It's sitting there empty. The weather is supposed to be great next week. So, can we swing by and grab the keys? My brain couldn't process it. He wasn't asking to borrow a cup of sugar. He was asking for a vacation home, my vacation home, the place where I went to escape. You want to use the lake house, I said flatly. For your honeymoon? Yeah, it would be perfect, he said. Mom and Dad said it would be fine. They said you wouldn't mind. Mom and Dad said it would be fine? Yeah. They said it's family property, so we should just use it. It saves us spending money on a hotel. Family property, the phrase echoed in my head. Oscar, I said, who pays the mortgage on the lake house? I don't know, he said. You handle the bills, right? Who paid for the new roof last year? I asked. You did, I guess, he said, sounding impatient. What's your point? Who pays the property taxes? Who pays the insurance? Who goes up there every spring to clean out the gutters and scrub the floors? You do, Sarah. We know you're good at that stuff, he said. Look, why are you making this difficult? We're family. What's yours is ours, right? That was it. The core of their belief system. What's yours is ours, but it never worked the other way. What was theirs was theirs. Their happiness was theirs. Their parties were theirs. Their wedding was theirs. But my money, my house, my labor, that belonged to the tribe. You didn't invite me to your wedding, I said. You told me to my face that I was unwanted. And now, 2 days later, you want a free vacation at my house. Oh my God, are you still on that? Oscar groaned. That was one day, Sarah. This is a house. It's a building. It's not emotional. Don't be petty. Sarah is really looking forward to it. Petty? I whispered. Yes, petty. Punishment. That's what you're doing. You're punishing us because you got your feelings hurt. It's childish. I closed my eyes. I saw the dynamic clearly for the first time. It wasn't just that they didn't love me. It was that they felt entitled to me. They thought they owned me. They thought I existed to serve them and that I should be grateful for the opportunity. If I said yes, nothing would change. They would go to the lake. They would drink wine on the deck I paid for. They would sleep in the beds I made. They would leave the trash for me to clean up. And they would still think I was annoying. If I said no, well, I had never really said no before, not like this. I'm not being petty, I said. I'm waking up. What does that mean? Oscar asked. I'm going to the lake house this weekend, I said. I'm going alone. But, no, Oscar, you can't have the keys. You can't use the house. Book a hotel. Mom is going to be pissed, Oscar threatened. His voice dropped low. She promised Sarah. Then Mom can pay for your hotel, I said. I hung up the phone. My heart was pounding like a hammer against my ribs. I felt dizzy. I had just said no. I had just denied them access. I sat down on my sofa. I looked around my quiet apartment. I felt terrified. I knew a storm was coming. My family didn't take no well. They would come for me. They would guilt me. They would attack. But under the fear there was something else. A tiny spark. A feeling of lightness. I had drawn a line in the sand. I stood up. I went to my closet. I pulled out my suitcase. I wasn't just going to the lake house to relax. I was going there to find the truth. Oscar had said it was family property. My parents acted like they owned it. But I remembered signing the papers. I remembered every check I wrote. I needed to see the proof. I needed to see it in black and white. I was going to the lake house to dig. The drive to the lake house took 3 hours. Usually, I loved this drive. I loved watching the city fade away and the trees take over. But this time I drove in silence. No radio, no podcasts, just the hum of the tires on the asphalt. I arrived just as the sun was setting. The house sat on a hill overlooking the water. It was a beautiful A-frame cabin with large windows. It looked peaceful. I parked the car and walked up to the door. I unlocked it. The air inside was stale. It had been closed up for a month. I turned on the lights. I looked around. I saw the rug I had bought at a flea market. I saw the bookshelf I had assembled. I saw the mugs I had picked out. Every single thing in this room was here because of me. My parents and Oscar came here all the time. They used it for 4th of July. They used it for birthdays. They brought their friends. They treated it like their personal resort. But they never brought supplies. They never fixed anything. If a light bulb went out, they left it for me. If a toilet clogged, they called me. I walked into the small office off the kitchen. This was where the filing cabinet was. This was where the history of the house lived. My grandfather had built this place. When he died 10 years ago, there was a lot of confusion. My father had bad credit. My mother didn't work. Oscar was in college. They had told me, Sarah, you have a good job. You sign the papers. We'll handle the rest later. We'll make a family trust. I was 24. I trusted them. I signed. I opened the metal drawer of the filing cabinet. It squeaked. I started pulling out folders. Mortgage, insurance, taxes, maintenance. I sat on the floor surrounded by paper. I started reading. I looked at the deed. It was dated 10 years ago. Owner, Lucille Marie Patterson. There were no other names. No and James Patterson. No and Martha Patterson. Just me. I looked at the mortgage statements. 10 years of monthly payments. Every single one came from my personal checking account. I looked at the tax records, paid by me. I looked for the family trust documents. My father had talked about the trust for years. The house belongs to the trust, he would say. We all have shares. I dug through every folder. I looked through every envelope. There was no trust. It didn't exist. There was never a lawyer hired to create it. There were never any papers filed. It was a lie. A ghost story they told to keep me in line. To make me feel like I was just a steward of their property. I sat back against the desk. I held the deed in my hands. The paper felt heavy. They had lied to me for a decade. They let me pay for everything. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, while they convinced me that I didn't really own it. They manipulated me into believing that my name on the paper was just a technicality, a favor to them because of Dad's credit. But legally, in the eyes of the world, this was my house. It wasn't family property. It wasn't Oscar's honeymoon suite. It was mine. I felt a surge of anger so hot it made my face burn. I thought about Oscar saying, Mom promised Sarah. Mom promised Sarah my house. Mom promised Sarah my sanctuary. They were generous with my things because they didn't respect my ownership. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark lake. The moon was reflecting on the water. I realized I had been the perfect victim. I was competent. I was solvent, and I was desperate for their approval. I paid the bills hoping they would love me. I fixed the roof hoping they would say, "Good job, Sarah." I bought my way into my own family, and it still wasn't enough. They still cut me out of the wedding. I turned away from the window. I looked at the pile of papers on the floor. I needed to stop being a daughter. I needed to start being a landlord. I needed to start being a business owner. I couldn't do this alone. I knew that. If I tried to confront them with just my words, they would gaslight me. They would cry. They would call me crazy. They would say I was remembering it wrong. I needed armor. I needed backup. I took out my phone. It was late, almost 10 p.m. I texted my friend Chloe. I need help. It's bad. Can you talk tomorrow? She replied instantly. I'm awake. Call me. I called Chloe. I sat on the floor of the office surrounded by the papers and I told her everything. I told her about the wedding, the photos, the energy comment, the request for the lake house, the fake trust. I cried. It was the first time I had really let it out. I sobbed until my throat hurt. Chloe listened. She didn't interrupt. She let me fall apart. When I was done, her voice was hard. Sarah, stop crying. Listen to me. You are done. You are done being their doormat. I know, I sniffled. No, you don't know. You think this is a family fight. It's not. This is financial abuse. This is theft. You need a lawyer. A lawyer against my parents. Yes. You need to lock this down before they try to take it from you. You said they act like they own it. What if they try to forge something? What if they try to squat there? You need a shark, Sarah. She gave me a name, Natalie Cruz. She handled my divorce, Chloe said. She doesn't play games. Call her first thing in the morning. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called in sick. I packed up every single document from the lake house filing cabinet into a box. I put the box in my trunk. I drove back to the city and went straight to Natalie Cruz's office. Natalie was a small woman with sharp glasses and a suit that looked like it could cut glass. She sat across from me at a large mahogany table. She didn't offer me tea and sympathy. She asked for facts. I laid it all out, the deed, the payments, the lack of a trust. Natalie went through the papers silently. Her eyes scanned the pages fast. She made notes on a yellow pad. After 20 minutes, she took off her glasses. Okay, she said. Here is the reality. You are the sole legal owner of the property. There is no ambiguity here. The verbal agreements your family talks about, this trust, it's meaningless in court. It doesn't exist. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So, they can't take it. No, Natalie said, but we have a problem. You've established a precedent of tenancy. You've allowed them to use the property freely for 10 years. If we want to lock them out, we need to do it formally. We need to send notice. Notice. A cease and desist. Or a formal notice of trespassing if they show up without permission. We need to change the locks. We need to install cameras. That seems so aggressive, I said. Natalie leaned forward. Sarah, they hid a wedding from you. They are currently trying to vacation in your home against your will. They are not treating you like family. They are treating you like a resource. You need to treat them like a liability. Her words hit me hard. Treat them like a liability. Okay, I said, do it. Good, Natalie said. Now, let's talk about the rest of your finances. You mentioned you pay for other things. My parents' cell phones, my mom's car insurance. I co-signed a loan for Oscar's business 2 years ago. Natalie looked at me with pity. We need a forensic accountant. I work with a guy named Stephen Ward. He's going to look at everything. We need to untangle you completely. I met with Stephen Ward that afternoon. He was a quiet man with a calculator and a frown. We pulled up my bank statements. We pulled up my credit report. It was worse than I thought. You're paying $400 a month for a storage unit, Stephen said. What's in it? My dad's old furniture, I said. He didn't have room for it when they downsized. You've paid, Stephen clicked away on his calculator, almost $5,000 a year. For 10 years, you've spent $50,000 storing old furniture. I stared at him. $50,000 and this loan for your brother, Stephen pointed at the screen. He's missed 3 payments this year. You know that hurts your credit score, right? No, I whispered. He said he was handling it. He's not, Stephen said. He's skipping payments. And because you co-signed, the bank is coming for you next. Stephen looked at me. Sarah, you aren't just a daughter, you are their bank. You are their retirement plan. You are their safety net. And they are bleeding you dry. I looked at the numbers on the screen. The red ink, the missed payments, the wasted money. I thought about the wedding, the champagne, the smiles. They spent money on a party, but they couldn't pay the loan I co-signed. They bought new dresses, but I was paying for their storage unit. It wasn't just neglect, it was exploitation. Stop it, I said. My voice was shaking, but it was strong. Stop all of it. We can draft letters, Stephen said. We can remove you as an authorized user on their accounts. We can refuse to renew the co-signing, but it's going to get ugly. They will lose services. They will get calls from debt collectors. I thought about my mother's face in the kitchen. Easier without Sarah's energy. Let them, I said. I looked at Natalie and Stephen. Draft the papers. Change the locks on the lake house. Cut off the payments for the phones and the storage unit. I want out. Natalie nodded. We'll have everything ready by tomorrow, but Sarah, be ready. When you cut off the money, they are going to panic. They are going to come for you. I know, I said. I felt a strange calm settling over me. Let them come. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. I left the office. The sun was shining. The city was loud and busy. I walked down the street, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel heavy. I felt light. I had been carrying my family on my back for a decade. I had just set them down. Now, I was just waiting for them to realize they were standing on their own feet and that they were about to fall. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 days after I hired Natalie and Stephen. I was at my desk on the 14th floor of the corporate building where I work as a project manager. I felt nervous. I knew the letters had been delivered. Stephen had sent the notices. He had cancelled the credit cards where I was an authorized user. He had sent a formal letter to the bank regarding Oscar's loan stating I would not renew the co-signing agreement, and Natalie had sent the cease and desist letter regarding the lake house. I was waiting for the explosion. At 10:15 a.m. the phone on my desk rang. It wasn't my cell phone. It was the internal line from the security desk in the lobby. "Ms. Patterson," the guard David asked, "I have 3 individuals here to see you. They say they are your family. They are quite agitated." My stomach dropped. They hadn't called. They hadn't texted. They just showed up. They were trying to ambush me at work knowing I would be embarrassed. They thought I would come down and give them whatever they wanted just to make them stop causing a scene. That was the old Sarah. "I'm not expecting visitors, David," I said. My voice was steady. "Please tell them I am in a meeting and cannot come down." I tried telling them that, David said. He sounded stressed. "They are refusing to leave. The older woman is shouting that she is your mother and she has a right to see you." I closed my eyes. I could picture it. My mother in her victim mode screaming at a minimum wage security guard. My father standing behind her with his arms crossed looking stern. Oscar probably pacing around looking for a way to sneak past the turnstiles. I took a deep breath. "David, do not let them up. I am authorizing you to remove them if they disrupt the lobby. They are not allowed on this floor." "Understood, Ms. Patterson," David said. I hung up. I sat there for a moment shaking. Then I realized something. I didn't want to hide. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see them hit a wall. I stood up and walked to the elevator. I pressed the button for the lobby. When the doors opened on the ground floor, the noise hit me instantly. "This is ridiculous." My mother was yelling. She was standing at the security desk, her face red. "She is my daughter. You can't keep me from my daughter. You need to step back." David was saying calmly. He was a big man, and he wasn't intimidated. My father was pointing a finger at another guard. "Do you know who I am? I am her father. I want to speak to your manager." Oscar saw me first. He was standing near the glass doors. He pointed at me. "There she is." My mother whipped around. Her eyes locked onto me. She didn't look like a loving mother. She looked like a predator. She marched toward the turnstiles, but the glass barrier was closed. She couldn't get to me. For the first time in my life, there was a physical barrier between us. They couldn't touch me. I walked up to the secure side of the turnstiles. I stood there, calm and silent. "Sarah!" My mother screamed. People in the lobby were staring. Executives in suits were stopping to watch. Usually, I would have died of shame. But today, I felt detached. What is the meaning of this? Our cards were declined. The bank called Oscar saying you pulled the backing on his loan. Are you insane? I'm not insane, I said. My voice was quiet, but in the echo of the lobby, they heard me. I'm just finished. Open this gate. My father barked. We need to talk. Now. No, I said. We don't. You changed the locks on the lake house. Oscar shouted. Sarah and I drove up there yesterday, and our key didn't work. Do you know how embarrassing that was? We had groceries in the car. It's my house, Oscar, I said. I didn't invite you. We are your family. My mother wailed. She grabbed the metal bars of the turnstile and shook them. How can you be so cruel after everything we've done for you? What have you done for me? I asked. Aside from me from your life when it suits you. This is about the wedding again. Oscar laughed, A desperate, angry sound. Get over it, Sarah. You're ruining everyone's life over a party. It's not about the party, I said. It's about the theft. It's about the lies. It's about $50,000 in storage fees, Dad. It's about using me. My father's face went pale. He didn't know I knew about the total amount. You are ungrateful. My mother hissed. You are a selfish, bitter girl. David, the security guard, stepped forward. He placed a hand on his belt. You are causing a disturbance. You need to leave the building now or I will call the police. You wouldn't dare. My mother spat at him. I absolutely would. David said. He looked at me. Miss Patterson, do you want them removed? The lobby went silent. My parents looked at me. They expected me to cave. They expected me to say, no, it's okay. Let them up. They expected the Sarah who wanted to be loved. I looked at my mother's angry face. I looked at my father's arrogance. I looked at my brother's entitlement. Yes, David. I said. Please remove them. They are harassing me. My mother gasped. It was a sound of pure shock. Sarah. She screamed as David and two other guards stepped forward. You will regret this. You will come crawling back. I don't think so, I said. I turned my back on them. I walked back to the elevator. Behind me, I heard the commotion of them being escorted out. I heard the heavy glass doors open and close. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 14th floor. The doors slid shut, cutting off the sound of their voices. I was alone in the elevator. I looked at my reflection in the metal wall. I didn't look like a victim anymore. I looked like someone who had just survived a war. I went back to my desk. I sat down. My hands were trembling slightly, but I wasn't crying. I felt a strange, cold strength in my chest. They had tried to use their loudness to control me, but in the real world with rules and laws and security guards, their loudness didn't work. Their power only existed if I agreed to it, and I had just stopped agreeing 2 days after the lobby incident. I got a text from Uncle Jacob. Can I come over? Just me. I have something you need to see. I was hesitant. Jacob was my father's brother. I was afraid he was coming to guilt-trip me. I was afraid he was a flying monkey, someone sent by the narcissist to drag the victim back in. But Jacob had been the one to tell me the truth about the wedding. He had looked sad that day, not malicious. Okay, I replied, 7 p.m. Jacob arrived right on time. He looked older than I remembered. He was carrying a worn leather briefcase. He didn't hug me. He just nodded and walked into my living room. He sat down on the sofa and placed the briefcase on his knees. He looked at me with that same pity he had in the grocery store. I heard about what happened at your office, he said. Are you here to tell me I was wrong? I asked, crossing my arms. No, Jacob said, I'm here to tell you that you were right, but you don't know the half of it. He clicked the latches on the briefcase. They snapped open loudly. He pulled out a thick stack of papers. They looked old. Some were yellowed. Some were printed emails. Some were handwritten notes. What is this? I asked. I was the executor of your grandfather's estate initially, Jacob said, before your father took over. I kept copies of everything, and I've been on the family email chain for a long time. I print things out because I don't trust computers, and I don't trust my brother. He handed me a sheet of paper. It was a printout of an email from my father to my mother dated 10 years ago, right after my grandfather died. Subject: the lake house problem from Dad to Mom. Jacob says we can't qualify for the mortgage on the cabin. My credit is too shot, but I have an idea. We can put it in Sarah's name. She's got that new job. She's eager to please. We tell her it's a family trust situation, so she doesn't get any ideas about actually controlling it. We let her pay the monthly nut, and we keep the keys. It's a win-win. We get the house, she gets to feel important. I read the email 3 times. My hands started to shake. She's eager to please. We let her pay the monthly nut. We tell her it's a family trust, so she doesn't get any ideas. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just them being bad with money. It was a plan. It was a strategy. They saw my love as a weakness they could exploit. There's more, Jacob said quietly. He handed me another document. It was a handwritten note in my mother's handwriting. It looked like a budget plan. Oscar's college fund, $0 plan, ask Sarah to co-sign loans. Guilt her about family supporting family. Retirement, use the money saved from not paying cabin mortgage. I felt sick, physically sick. I had to put the papers down on the coffee table. They planned it, I whispered. My whole adult life. They looked at me and saw a bank account. They saw a resource, Jacob corrected. Sarah, you were the responsible one, the good one, and they punished you for it. They knew you would never say no. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, tears stinging my eyes. Why did you wait 10 years? Jacob looked down at his hands. I'm a coward, Sarah. I didn't want to start a war with my brother. I thought maybe they loved you in their own way. I thought maybe it would work out. But, when they hid the wedding from you, that was pure malice. That wasn't about money. That was about cruelty. And when I heard they were trying to take the lake house for Oscar's honeymoon, I knew I couldn't stay quiet. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out one last folder. This is the most important one, he said. It was a financial projection my father had made just last year. It was a plan for their retirement. Asset liquidation plan, sell the lake house in 2026. Estimated value, $450,000. Proceeds to be split, 50% parents, 50% Oscar. They were going to sell it, Jacob said. They were going to make you sell it or forge your signature and take the money. You weren't in the split, Sarah, not a dime. I stared at the paper. They were going to sell my house, the house I paid for, and give the money to Oscar. The betrayal was so deep it didn't feel like sadness anymore. It felt like a cold, hard stone in my gut. Can I keep these? I asked. Yes, Jacob said. Give them to your lawyer. This proves intent. This proves it wasn't just negligence, it was fraud. I stood up. I walked to the window. I looked out at the city lights. Thank you, Jacob, I said. I'm sorry, Sarah, he said. He stood up and closed his empty briefcase. You deserved better parents. You really did. When he left, I sat alone with the papers. I touched the email where my father called me eager to please. He was right. I had been eager. I had wanted their love so badly I paid for it. But looking at these papers, I realized something liberating. There was no love to buy. It was never there. I had been paying for a product that didn't exist. I wasn't losing a family. I was losing a parasite. I took a picture of the documents and emailed them to Natalie and Stephen. Then I put them in my safe. I went to bed, and for the first time in a month, I slept without dreaming. The fallout wasn't an explosion. It was a slow, grinding crumble. Once Stephen cut off the money, the reality of their lives caught up with them fast. The first thing to go was the cell phones. I had been paying the family plan for 6 years. I cancelled the lines on a Monday. By Tuesday afternoon, I had 12 missed calls on my work line from a random number. I didn't answer. Then, the storage unit. I stopped paying the bill. The storage company sent a notice to my parents' address saying that if the bill wasn't paid in 30 days, the contents would be auctioned. My mother left me a voicemail. Her voice was shrill. Sarah, they are going to sell Grandma's antique dresser. How can you let this happen? Send the money now. I didn't send the money. I deleted the voicemail. Then came the big one, Oscar's loan. Because I had formally removed my backing and alerted the bank to his missed payments, the bank froze his credit line. His small business, a consulting firm that mostly seemed to involve him going to lunch, couldn't operate without that credit. I heard from a cousin that Oscar had to fire his assistant. I heard he had to move out of his fancy office space and back into his basement. And then, the social fallout began. Because I had the documents from Uncle Jacob, I wasn't afraid of their lies anymore. When relatives called me to ask why I was being so mean to my poor parents, I didn't argue. I just sent them a screenshot. I sent Aunt Linda the email where Dad called me eager to please and planned to use me. I sent Cousin Mike the budget showing $0 for my wedding fund and thousands for Oscar. The silence that followed those texts was deafening. People started to pull away from my parents. The cousins from Ohio canceled their visit for Thanksgiving. Neighbors stopped waving. The truth travels fast in a small town and proof travels faster. My parents tried to maintain appearances. They posted photos on Facebook of them smiling at dinner, but I noticed they were eating at a cheap diner, not the expensive steakhouse they used to go to on my dime. My mother looked tired in the photos. Her hair wasn't dyed. I realized I used to pay for her salon appointments, too. 3 weeks after the lobby incident, I drove past their house. I didn't stop. I just looked. The grass was long. The flower beds were full of weeds. The blinds were drawn. It looked like a house that was slowly dying. Without my money and my labor, the illusion of their perfect life was falling apart. They were drowning in the reality they had created. I felt a pang of sadness. I am human and they are my parents. It hurt to see them struggle, but then I remembered the wedding. I remembered the lake house. I remembered the asset liquidation plan. If I went in there and fixed it, if I paid the gardener and the phone bill and the loan, they wouldn't love me. They would just go back to using me. I kept driving. A week later, I got a letter from an attorney representing my parents. It was a desperate move. They were threatening to sue me for elder abuse and emotional distress. I showed it to Natalie. She laughed. "This is a joke," she said. "They have no case. You have no legal obligation to support them and we have the evidence of their fraud. If they sue you, we will counter-sue for the money you spent on the storage unit and the house maintenance. We will destroy them in court." Natalie sent a reply. It was 1 page. It listed the total amount of money I had given them over 10 years, over $200,000 including the house payments. It attached the email from Uncle Jacob. It ended with a simple sentence. "Miss Patterson is willing to forego recovering these stolen funds in exchange for a permanent severance of all contact. If you pursue this, we will seek full repayment." We never heard from their lawyer again. They couldn't afford a legal fight. They knew they would lose. Their bluff was called. Their power was gone. I thought that letter would be the end of it. But narcissists don't give up that easily. They need one final attempt to regain control. It was a month later. I received an email from my father. Subject: "Let's talk. Sarah, enough is enough. We are family. We cannot end things like this. Lawyers are expensive and unnecessary. Meet us at the park by the river. Neutral ground. No yelling. Just a conversation. Please, for your mother's sake." I debated not going. I had nothing to say, but Natalie told me it might be good to have closure. "Go," she said, "but take a witness and don't sign anything." I asked Uncle Jacob to come with me. He agreed. We met them on a Saturday afternoon. The park was crowded with families. Kids were playing on the swings. People were walking dogs. It was a bright, happy world which made our meeting feel even darker. My parents were sitting on a bench. Oscar wasn't there. It was just them. They looked small. My father's shoulders were slumped. My mother looked older. When they saw me, they didn't smile. They looked at Uncle Jacob with pure hatred. "You brought a traitor," my father spat at Jacob. "I brought a witness," I said calmly. I didn't sit down. I stood in front of the bench. "What do you want?" "We want our daughter back," my mother said. Her voice wavered. She reached out a hand to touch me. I took a step back. "You never had a daughter. You had a bank account." "That's not true," my mother cried. "We love you. We made mistakes." "Yes, the wedding, it was a mistake. We are sorry." "You aren't sorry you did it," I said. "You're sorry you got caught. And you're sorry the money stopped." "We are struggling, Sarah," my father said. His voice was gruff. "The bills are piling up. Oscar is in trouble. We might lose the house." "I know," I said. I saw the grass. "So, you're just going to watch us sink?" he asked. "After we raised you, we gave you life. You gave me life, I said, and then you charged me for it. You have taken enough. You took my trust. You took my confidence. You took my money. We can fix this, my mother pleaded. Just unlock the lake house. Let Oscar use it for a few weekends. Help us with the loan payments just for a few months until he gets back on his feet. We can go back to normal. I looked at them. They still didn't get it. They were still bargaining. They thought the price of my love was a few loan payments. No, I said. The word hung in the air. No access to the lake house, I said, ever. I am changing the locks again next week just to be sure. I am putting it on the rental Ascaret. Strangers will be sleeping there, paying me money. You will never step foot inside again. My father's face turned red. No shared finances, I continued. I am not paying your phone bill. I am not paying for the storage unit. If you want to keep that old furniture, you pay for it. If you can't, let it go. And, I said, looking my mother in the eye, no contact. Do not call me. Do not come to my work. Do not email me. If you do, I will call the police. You can't do that, my mother whispered. We are your parents. I can, I said, and I am. Sarah, please, my father said. He sounded desperate now. We have nothing. You have each other, I said, and you have Oscar. You chose him. You chose him over and over again. Now you have to live with that choice. I turned to Jacob. I'm ready to go. We walked away. My mother started screaming my name. Sarah, Sarah, come back. People in the park stopped and looked. A year ago, I would have turned around. I would have run back to hush her to fix it, to make the scene stop. But I kept walking. I let her scream. Her voice got smaller and smaller the further I walked. I reached my car. I got in. Jacob sat beside me. Are you okay? He asked. I took a deep breath. The air felt clean. I'm not okay yet, I said, but I'm free. 6 months passed. It is autumn now. I am at the lake house. I am sitting on the deck, wrapped in a thick blanket, holding a mug of hot coffee. The air is crisp and smells like pine needles and wood smoke. The lake is a sheet of glass, reflecting the orange and red leaves of the trees. It is quiet. For the first few months, the silence terrified me. I was so used to the chaos of my family. I was used to the phone ringing with a crisis. I was used to the knot of anxiety in my stomach, wondering what they needed next. When that stopped, I felt empty. I had to relearn who I was. If I wasn't the fixer, if I wasn't the provider, then who was Sarah? I started therapy. I started spending time with Chloe and Uncle Jacob. We have dinner every Sunday. We laugh, we talk about books and movies. No one asks me for money. No one insults me. I realized that family isn't blood. Family is the people who respect you. I looked at the house behind me. It looks different now. I painted the front door a bright red. I threw out the old rug my mother liked and bought a new one that I liked. I turned the second bedroom, the one Oscar used to claim, into a library for myself. I listed the house on a vacation rental site for selected weekends. It brings in enough money to pay the taxes and the insurance. The house is paying for itself now. It's not a drain on me anymore. It's an asset. I haven't spoken to my parents. I heard from Jacob that they had to sell their house. They downsized to a small apartment across town. Oscar had to get a job at a car dealership. They are surviving. They are facing the consequences of their own lives. It's not my problem. I took a sip of my coffee. I watched a hawk circle over the water. There is a twist to this story, but it's not a loud one. It's not a dramatic reveal. The twist is that I thought losing my family would destroy me. I thought being an orphan in a way would break me, but it didn't. Cutting them off was the amputation of a gangrenous limb. It hurt, yes. It left a scar, but it saved my life. I am 34 years old. I own my home. I own my car. I own my career. But most importantly, I own my story. I looked down at my phone. It was silent. No missed calls. No angry texts. I smiled. I put the phone down and looked back at the lake. I breathed in the cold, clean air. This is what peace feels like. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to buy it. It was just mine.